For years, Neymar was not just a football player. He was supposed to be the next face of Brazil, the next global king, the boy who would carry the yellow shirt, win the World Cup, take the Ballon d'Or, and stand beside the greatest names this sport has ever seen. But when Neymar stepped back onto the World Cup stage after almost 3 years away from Brazil, the question was no longer simple. It was not, is Neymar talented? Everyone already knows the answer. The real question was darker. How can a player this gifted, this famous, this magical, still feel like a story of almost? Because Neymar did not have a normal career. He became Brazil's all-time top scorer. He won major trophies. He played for Santos, Barcelona, PSG, Al Hilal, and returned to Santos like a hero, coming back to where the dream began. But still, when football fans talk about Neymar, they do not only talk about what he won, they talk about what they expected. And that is where the pain begins. Neymar arrived like a football prophecy. At Santos, he was not just scoring goals, he was creating moments. He played with joy, arrogance, rhythm, and imagination. He looked like Brazil's answer to a new generation. Not just another star, a symbol. In Brazil, that matters more than people outside understand. The number 10 shirt is not just a number. It carries Pelé. It carries pressure. It carries history. It carries the belief of millions of people who do not just want victory. They want beauty with victory. And Neymar looked like the one who could give them both. But the first trap in Neymar's career was expectation. When a country sees you as the chosen one, you do not get time to grow slowly. Every touch becomes a judgment. Every injury becomes a crisis. Every bad game becomes a national debate, and Neymar was carrying that before he was even fully mature. Then came Barcelona. This was supposed to be the perfect step. Neymar joined a team full of superstars, and for a while everything looked like destiny. With Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez, he became part of one of the most frightening attacking trios football has seen. They won the Champions League. They destroyed teams. They played football that looked unfair, and for many fans, this was the moment Neymar was supposed to take the next step. But the real problem was not the trophies. The real problem was the shadow. At Barcelona, Neymar was brilliant, but Messi was still Messi. And when you play beside one of the greatest players in history, even greatness can feel like second place. That is what most fans missed. Neymar did not leave Barcelona because he was not good enough. He left because he wanted a different story. He wanted a team where the spotlight was not shared with a legend who owned the era. So he went to Paris. The money was huge, the pressure was huge, the reaction was huge, and suddenly Neymar was not just a footballer anymore. He became a symbol of football's new power, new money, new ambition, and new risk. At PSG, he was supposed to become the main man, the king of Paris, the player who would deliver the Champions League and finally separate himself from Messi and Ronaldo. But this is where the story becomes dangerous, because talent can win moments, but timing decides legacy. Neymar gave PSG magic. He gave them goals, assists, skill, and nights where he looked impossible to stop. He helped take them to a Champions League final in 2020. That was not a small thing, but PSG did not win it with him. And years later, when PSG finally won the Champions League without Neymar, the twist became painful. Because sometimes football does not judge you only by how good you were. It judges you by whether the biggest trophy arrived while you were still standing in the center of the picture. For Neymar, that picture kept breaking. Injuries became one of the biggest villains of his career. Not excuses, not fake drama. Real injuries. Real absences. Real lost rhythm. In 2014, Brazil hosted the World Cup, and Neymar was the emotional center of the nation. Every stadium, every flag, every yellow shirt felt like it was waiting for him to finish the story. Then, against Colombia, his tournament ended with a fractured vertebra. Brazil advanced, but the soul of the team was gone, and the humiliation that followed against Germany became part of Neymar's story, even though he was not on the pitch. That is the cruel part. Sometimes you can miss the disaster and still be marked by it forever. In 2018, the pressure returned. Brazil had Neymar again, but he was coming off injury problems and the tournament never fully became his stage. The talent was still there. The danger was still there. But the feeling was different. Fans wanted the Neymar who could own the world. Instead, they saw a player fighting his body, fighting pressure, fighting criticism, and fighting the image people had already created of him. Then came 2022. Another World Cup, another chance, another emotional Brazil team. Neymar scored a huge goal against Croatia, and for a few minutes it looked like maybe this was the moment. Maybe this was the comeback. Maybe this was the chapter that changed everything, but Brazil went out on penalties. And once again, Neymar's World Cup dream ended not with celebration, but with silence. That is why his career feels so complicated. Because he did not lack greatness, he lacked the final image. The image of Neymar lifting the World Cup. The image of Neymar winning the Ballon d'Or. The image of Neymar standing alone as the clear best player in the world. And without that image, people started judging him harder than they judged almost anyone else. Some fans remember the tricks. Some remember the injuries. Some remember the transfer. Some remember the parties, the criticism, the frustration, the feeling that maybe he could have done even more. But this is where we have to be honest. Saying Neymar wasted his career is too simple. And it is not fair. A wasted career does not become Brazil's top scorer. A wasted career does not win the Champions League. A wasted career does not carry a country's hope for more than a decade. A wasted career does not make defenders panic before he even touches the ball. The truth is sharper than that. Neymar's career became great, but it never became complete. And for a player with his talent, incomplete feels like failure to the world. That is the unfair standard of genius. If a normal player has Neymar's career, people call him a legend forever. But because Neymar was supposed to become the next king, every missing trophy became louder. Every injury felt bigger. Every lost knockout game became another piece of evidence in a trial that never ended. And now, in 2026, the story has returned to the World Cup. Brazil beat Scotland 3-0. Vinicius Jr. shined. Brazil topped the group. The team looked alive. But when Neymar came back after such a long absence, the emotion around him was different. This was not the young Neymar carrying Brazil alone anymore. This was an older Neymar, surrounded by a new generation, trying to prove that his story still has one final chapter. And this is where the next match becomes dangerous, because Brazil no longer needs Neymar to be the entire team. But Brazil may still need Neymar for one moment. One pass, one touch, one free kick, one piece of calm in a knockout game where the pressure becomes heavy and the nation starts holding its breath. That may be the new version of Neymar. Not the boy who had to carry everything, but the survivor who understands how heavy everything feels. And maybe that is why his career hurts so much. Because Neymar was never just fighting defenders. He was fighting history. He was fighting Pelé's shadow, Messi's shadow, Ronaldo's era, Brazil's World Cup obsession, PSG's Champions League dream, his own body, his own image, his own expectations. And when a player fights that many battles, even victory can look incomplete. So why did Neymar's career never become what everyone expected? Because everyone expected perfection. They expected magic without injury, freedom without criticism, Brazilian joy without pressure, a superstar life without consequences, a World Cup hero without heartbreak. But football does not work like that. Neymar gave the world beauty, chaos, pain, trophies, arguments, tears, and unforgettable moments. He became one of the most famous footballers of his generation. But he never fully became the untouchable legend fans imagined when he first appeared at Santos. And now, the final question is still open. Can Neymar still change the ending? Maybe not the whole career, maybe not the past. But one World Cup moment can change how a story feels. One knockout night can turn regret into redemption. One last piece of magic can make millions remember not only what Neymar missed, but what he still gave. Because sometimes legacy is not about becoming what everyone expected. Sometimes legacy is about surviving the weight of those expectations and still walking back onto the pitch. And for Neymar, the next game is not just another game. It is another chance to fight the word that has followed him for years. Almost. If you want more World Cup stories like this, subscribe and watch the next breakdown.